Hi folks, this is Mike, PC31, the Vinyl Policeman, back for another unboxing. This is my second unboxing. Did Keith Richards' Main Offender a little while ago. This is the public service announcement. This is the reissue of The Clash's Combat Rock from 1982. This is my original copy that I bought way back in May 1982. No, you can't see it there, but no barcode on the back because obviously it's pre-barcodes, but this is the original copy, and I bought it for £3.99 from Subway Records in Portsmouth. No longer there, but came with a poster which I think was on my wall at the time, but that's the original. And what's happened now is it was released on Friday, the 20th of May, and they released it in a few different formats. Not too many actually, but the Clash are a go-to for me, so I've basically bought, I think, most of the formats. But one of them was a green vinyl version, so there's the album there. 180 gram, 1 LP green vinyl, limited 2022 edition. And there's the green vinyl. Okay. I also got, for my sins, the CD with the OB-esque thing across the top there, the Clash Combat Rock, the People's Horse Special Edition, which I'll go into. There we are. And this particular thing comes with three discs. The Free and Independent Republic of Frestonia, which I shall go into what that's all about. But the main thing is a 3 vinyl set, which is what I've got here. And the picture there is taken by Penny Smith, Penny Smith obviously really famous for taking the London Calling, Paul Simonon, on stage at the Palladium in New York. And she actually toured with the band. She went to Japan, Australasia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand. Just after this was recorded, but before it was released, it would have been early '82. They did a tour of the Far East, and Penny Smith took this picture of the Clash on some railway tracks in Thailand. So that's where that's come from. On the back, everything about it. And actually, as I say, comes with 3 records. One side has got nothing on it though, but the main album itself, 12 tracks, comes on the original. It's 180 grams, as I say, but comes on the original with the lyrics, which is identical to the original one back in '82. Look at this fantastic picture. Hear all about it. September 1681, The Clash. Classical Recordings, West London edition. The Armageddon Times Frestonian edition, The People's Whore. Look at that fantastic picture. Presumably from a picture from World War II, where you've got a blown out library or whatever in London, and you've got 3 businessmen looking for books there. Fantastic picture. On the back, you've got a picture taken by Penny Smith of the Clash outside of what's called the Apocalypse Hotel, which again, that part of West London which they were in, there was lots of squats, and the Clash were in a squat there, and several bands were, and Penny Smith taking a picture there, what was called the Apocalypse Hotel. So what you've actually, oh no, sorry, the 3rd record is this one, which is the Free Independent Republic of Frestonia, and all about the squat. There's some pretend stamps there from the Republic of Frestonia. So on this one, what you've got on the actual main album, you've got the original 12 tracks, and but then on the other 2 records, you've got other tracks. There were circa about 18 tracks recorded for the actual sessions, late '81, early '82, and originally Mick Jones intended this album to be a double album, maybe even a triple, like Sandinista, the one before, London Calling, the one before that, double album, Sandinista, a triple album. So there were 18 tracks underway for this particular album. And I think originally when they cut the tracks, it was about 77 minutes. That's one of the records there. And on the other side, as you can see, it's just blanks. There's no itching or anything. There's just nothing there. So as I say, originally there were about 18 tracks, and this is the first time officially those tracks have come out. The additional ones that are recorded, and you've got tracks such as First Night Back in London, He Who Dares or Is Tired, Long Time Jerk, The Fulham Connection, Midnight to Stevens. Stevens referring to the producer Guy Stevens, who produced Give 'Em Enough Rope, the Clash's second album. Sean Flynn, about Sean Flynn, who was the son of Errol Flynn, who was a photojournalist who was killed by the Viet Cong. They caught him in Cambodia. Idle in a Kangaroo Court, Know Your Rights, an early version there. Sean Flynn's an early version. Futura 2000, Radio Clash, Outside the Bonds. So there were tracks there and snippets of recordings which were intended by Mick Jones to appear on the album. But basically at that time there was a lot of tension within the band, and basically Joe Strummer, Paul Simonon wanted a single album, just a single piece of vinyl, circa about 12 tracks on and shorter tracks. I wanted it to be quite punchy and anarchic like the Clash had been in the early days. Mick Jones apparently was after something a lot more, a longer album, maybe a double album, more dancey, longer tracks. So there was a real disagreement between them at the time. And it ended up after all that, well, what they actually did was Paul Simonon and Joe Strummer basically got the original Clash manager back, Bernie Rhodes, because he would make it more chaotic and more anarchic like the Clash used to be, and that's what they really liked. Mick Jones didn't. So Bernie Rhodes came back, and he actually seconded the help of the wonderful Glenn Johns, as in Beatles engineer, and produced lots and lots of albums. So effectively, although on this album Glenn Johns is credited with mixing it, Glenn Johns is all over it, and he shortened the tracks with Joe Strummer and Mick Jones and Paul Simonon, and made it a really sharp production. So on this album, I mean, the actual production is fantastic. Topper Headon at the time really contributed fantastically to the album, and the music of Rock the Casbah is basically Topper Headon, and also most of the instruments as well. But he was so high on heroin at the time through these sessions, the band sacked him kind of just after this album was released, or when the sessions were finished. And Mick Jones, a couple of years later, also left the band as well, as everybody knows. So just drilling in a bit more to the album then. So the album was the most successful Clash album of all of them, the penultimate one, but it was the last album with the main four Clash members, Joe Strummer, Paul Simonon, Mick Jones and Topper Headon. And after that, Cut the Crap was obviously the last Clash album, but it was only Joe and Paul Simonon, and I don't think many people class that as a true Clash album, so this is probably the last Clash album. Best-selling one, reached number 2 in the UK on the charts for about 23 weeks. Reached number 7 in the US on the charts for 61 weeks. The original working title for this, which was coined by Mick Jones, was Rat Patrol from Fort Bragg. And then obviously it was renamed Combat Rock. All the recording was in West London at Ear Studios, and but then the recording was transferred over to Electric Lady over in New York, and then eventually it came back to when it was given to Glenn Johns. Glenn Johns lives in Warnford in Hampshire, which is not far away from where I live actually. So the actual final mixing, production, cutting down the tracks, etc., was not very far from where I am, so it was in Warnford. So if you go into the songs, I don't intend this to be a very long thing. And when I call it an unboxing, obviously other more professional people in the VC, Jamie Cottles, etc., do a proper unboxing and open things in front of you. I'm too terrified with the scalpel that I'm going to start slicing sleeves to bits, so I always tend to open them before. So apologies, that's just the way I do it. So it's a kind of unboxing. So I'm just going to pick out a few of the tracks because this isn't a complete review of the album. But if you pull out a track, say like Rock the Casbah, which is really, really famous track, made famous because it was MTV time. I mean, the actual video for the Clash was done by Don Letts, closely associated with the Clash. Rock the Casbah, yeah, as I say, Topper Headon actually came out with a piano riff, which was the melody. He came out with the bass. I think he played the bass on it. Obviously, he did the drums. And when it was presented to the band as a demo, as a potential song, the band absolutely loved it. And I think a lot of that original Topper Headon instrumentation was kept. He also wrote a bunch of lyrics for it, a bunch of ideas, but Joe had his own ideas, so so Joe actually wrote the lyrics to it and put it on. But fantastic song. Should I Stay, Should I Go? Obviously, gigantic song sung by Mick Jones, and Joe does the Spanish singing certain parts of the song. But interestingly enough, that's actually Ecuadorian Spanish, because the tape operator at the time in New York, he was his mother was in Ecuador, so they apparently phoned up the mother, wanted a translation of certain lyrics. So when Joe actually sings it on Should I Stay or Should I Go, it's actually Ecuadorian Spanish. Interesting stuff. Should I Go, absolutely gigantic. It was originally thought the lyrics that Mick Jones wrote there were all about perhaps his relationship with Helen Foley, who he was with at the time. Helen Foley, who did a lot of backing vocals with Meat Loaf on Bat Out of How, etc., and did a lot of great solo work in her own right. It was also felt that because Mick was on the verge of leaving the Clash, Should I Say, Should I Go? But afterwards, Mick completely refuted all that, and he just said, no, it's just a standard rock song. It's a kind of rock riff we used to play in rehearsal, etc. So, fantastic song. We're jumping to another, Sean Flynn, touched on it earlier. So Sean Flynn, so that's based on Errol Flynn's son, who was a photojournalist, and he was in Vietnam doing the photojournalistic work. But he was caught by the Viet Cong, and he was murdered. So this song's all about Sean Flynn. And I guess that the last one I'll just touch on is my favourite on the album, which is Straight to Hell, which is, I think, just a staggering track. And where a lot of this album is very kind of post-Vietnam, aftermath of Vietnam. I know the album the Clash were very much inspired at the time by Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now of 1979. So you got a lot of feel of that, and in Straight to Hell, there's loads and loads. The first verse is kind of about northern steel mills in England and the injustice of that. Second verse is about, I think it's where Joe actually uses the phrase Amerasian blues, which is all about the American soldiers who went to Vietnam, women were pregnant, and then the kids kind of were left there, and apparently the second verse is touching on that. So it's very kind of Vietnam based, the whole feel of it, etc. apparently. Yeah, those are the only tracks on the main album I'm going to touch on, but it's a very trippy album, brilliant production, Glenn Johns, genius, absolutely fantastic. If you look at some of the other tracks there, just to talk for a minute about the whole People's Hall aspect of this. So in West London, so the A40 is the Westway, basically comes out the west side of London. When that was being put in by the Greater London Council, that actually caused a lot of derelict buildings, and a lot of people were evicted from their houses. And so a lot of squatters moved in, and the Clash were kind of part of that whole thing, as were several bands at the time. And that's when they declared the whole area the Republic of Freestonia. And in the actual People's Hall, which was in that area, the Clash used to rehearse, record there. Motorhead used to do it. I think the Passions got their first album up there. Their famous single is I'm in Love with a German Film Star, which I absolutely love. I think it's a brilliant track. They played their first gig at the People's Hall in West of London. So a lot of these tracks, I say, were recorded there, and there's some great tracks there. I mean, it's a great historic thing. So that's it, folks, short and sweet. So from May 1982, re-released last Friday. As I say, the 3 vinyl or 2.5 vinyls The Clash Combat Rock, the People's Hall Special Edition, is absolutely fantastic. So comes with a poster as well, the original poster, which I'll quickly show you, which way back in 1982, when I was a little bit younger than I am now, I had this on my wall. Okay, the Clash, when they went on that Far Eastern tour into Thailand, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and and I say another final look at the original album from that I actually bought in May 1982, £3.99 from Subway Records. Those were the days. Okay folks, hope you enjoyed it. Fantastic album, really recommend. Thank you.